right, so we're diving into Be So Good They Can't Ignore You today. This one, it came straight from you guys, our listeners. You wanted the deep dive treatment on this book by David Adu, and we always deliver.
We do. And this one, well, this idea of going from feeling invisible to becoming someone whose skills, just can't be ignored, it
Yeah.
really resonated.
Yeah, it's that feeling of being overlooked, putting the work, and still wondering, how do those other people get ahead? Adu's book tackles that head on, and we're going to break it all down for you. He's packed it with personal stories, examples from the real world, and these hard-earned lessons he learned about, actually getting to that point where your work and your skills speak for themselves.
Right, and that's what we're after here, extracting those core ideas so you can put them to use.
Okay, so one of the things that really jumped out at me right away was this concept of what Adu calls the illusion of luck. It's easy to look at someone successful and think, oh, they were just lucky, or they must know all the right people. But Adu really pushes back on that.
He does. He makes this crucial point that while, sure, luck is a factor in life, the people who really achieve big things, they're not just riding some wave of good fortune. They are prepared. It's like that old saying, luck favors the prepared mind. In this case, it's the prepared individual who's put in the work, who's ready for that moment.
Right. It really clicks when you think about it that way. Adu uses the example of athletes, which I thought was perfect. We see the amazing performance, the winning shot, the record-breaking run, but what we don't often see are the years, the thousands of hours of training, the relentless practice leading up to that.
It's not just some random event, that moment of success. It's the culmination of all that dedication, all that groundwork.
Yeah. And what I found fascinating is that Adu then challenges you, the reader, to think about that preparation in your own life. He asks, if that opportunity, the one you're hoping for, arrived tomorrow, would you actually be ready to seize it? Have you built the skills, the knowledge, the experience to not just grab it, but to truly excel?
It's a powerful question. It forces you to reflect, doesn't it? Like, think about those times when maybe an opportunity did come along, but you weren't quite equipped to take full advantage.
Exactly. And that leads us right into what I see as the central theme of this whole book. It's about moving from that feeling of being invisible, like you said, to becoming what Adu calls unstoppable.
Yeah.
And he actually shares a very personal story in the book that really drives this point home.
Right. He talks about this time in his life where he was putting in the effort, meeting expectations, doing all the right things, but he still felt stuck, overlooked, while other people around him were moving ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening can relate to that feeling.
Absolutely. And it was during that frustrating period that he came across this really powerful quote, "Be so good they can't ignore you."
It does sound almost deceptively simple when you first hear it, doesn't it?
It does. Adu even admits that he initially dismissed it. He thought, well, I think I am good. But the real breakthrough for him was recognizing that simply putting in the hours, it isn't enough. What really cuts through, what makes you stand out, is true excellence.
And there's a distinction there, isn't there, between just being good, reliable, hardworking, hitting those basic expectations, and being truly great.
Absolutely. And great, as Adu defines it, it's not about some innate talent or magic. It's about being remarkable, consistently exceeding those expectations.
Right. It's about doing work that stands out, that forces people to take notice.
Exactly. And that's where the turning point came for him. It wasn't enough to feel frustrated or overlooked. He had to actively change his approach. And he did that by really studying the people who were achieving the kind of impact he wanted to make, analyzing their habits, their work styles, their communication, everything, basically asking himself, what are they doing differently?
And what did he find?
Wow.
What was the secret sauce?
Well, he realized they shared a deep commitment to their craft. They went above and beyond consistently. They sought out opportunities to make a real difference, not waiting for permission, but creating their own path.
It's not just about working hard, it's about working smart, working strategically.
Exactly. It's about having a vision and pursuing it relentlessly.
And this shift in mindset and approach, it led to a tangible change in Adu's own experience, didn't it?
It did. He went from being the one who was passed over to the one people started seeking out for advice, for leadership. His work was recognized and opportunities started coming to him.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You elevate your work, you elevate your skills, and ultimately you elevate your own position.
Right. And for anyone listening who's feeling invisible right now, that's the message. Don't wait for someone to notice you. Cultivate that level of excellence that can't be ignored. Make yourself undeniable.
It's inspiring, isn't it? And it's actionable. Adu lays out some very specific things you can do to make that shift.
Yeah, he talks about raising your personal bar for everything you do. If your work is meeting the standard, push it further. Make it exceptional. If your skills are good, hone them until they're outstanding.
Right. Always be learning, always be growing.
Exactly. And if you feel like you're blending in, find ways to make your contributions more visible, more impactful. Own your successes.
Now, another big point Adu makes in the book is about talent. He has this whole section titled, Talent Isn't Enough, Work Beats Luck Every Time.
Yeah, this is where he tackles the idea that some people are just born for success, that they're naturally gifted, and he argues pretty convincingly that talent alone doesn't guarantee anything.
He tells this really interesting story about a guy he calls Michael, who is naturally talented in many areas. Things came easily to him, and he didn't have to work very hard.
But because of that, he never really developed a strong work ethic. He coasted on his talent, and when he finally did face some real challenges, he wasn't prepared.
What happened to Michael? What was that wake-up call?
Well, he went after this really competitive opportunity, this dream job, and he was so confident that his natural abilities would be enough to get it. But he was wrong.
Someone else got it.
Yeah, someone who maybe wasn't as naturally brilliant as Michael, but had put in the years of hard work, of focused effort, of honing their skills to a really high level, and that was Michael's moment of truth. Talent had given him a head start, but it was the consistent, dedicated work that ultimately determined who succeeded.
It's like having all the potential in the world, but never putting in the effort to realize it.
Exactly, and Adu uses this story to make a larger point about success. He looks at people like Cristiano Ronaldo, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, and yeah, they might have some natural abilities, but their achievements are built on a foundation of relentless effort, practice, constant learning. These aren't people who just coasted on talent.
Right. He emphasizes that there are so many talented people out there who never reach their full potential because they lack that crucial ingredient, hard work.
He lays out those comparisons. You know, the naturally gifted athlete who skips practice versus the less gifted athlete who never misses a training session. The student who relies on their intelligence versus the one who puts in the study hours.
Time and time again, consistent work beats out raw talent.
And that's the takeaway for our listeners. Don't rely on your natural abilities alone. Potential has to be developed through work, learning, and constant improvement. Never stop pushing yourself.
So we've talked about the importance of preparation, of excellence, of hard work. But what about when we hit those inevitable roadblocks? What about rejection? Adu has a really insightful perspective on that too.
He does. He dedicates a whole section to reframing rejection, calling it redirection. Because let's face it, rejection hurts. It can make you question everything.
It's natural to feel discouraged, to doubt yourself.
Absolutely. But Adu wants us to see rejection not as a dead end, but as a signpost pointing us in a different direction. It might not be the path we initially envisioned, but it could be a better one, a more fitting one.
I love that. It's about changing the narrative around those experiences.
Right. And he tells the story about missing out on what he thought was his dream job. He was devastated at the time, but it led him to something even better down the line.
Which proves that we often can't see the bigger picture when we're in the midst of those disappointments. What feels like a setback could actually be a blessing in disguise.
Exactly. And he backs this up with examples of hugely successful people who faced major rejection early in their careers. Oprah Winfrey being fired from her first TV job, Michael Jordan being cut from his high school basketball team, J.K. Rowling getting rejected by multiple publishers for Harry Potter.
Wow. It puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. Rejection is part of the journey, especially when you're aiming high. It's not about avoiding it, it's about how you respond to it.
So instead of seeing it as a sign that we're not good enough, we need to reframe it as a course correction, a chance to learn, adapt, and find a new way forward.
Adu says that a closed door often just means not this door or not right now. There's always another opportunity, another path waiting to be discovered.
So keep pushing forward, keep learning, and trust that even rejection can lead you to where you're supposed to be. Now, the last big idea I want to talk about is Adu's take on mastery. He has this really interesting and maybe even counterintuitive concept called falling in love with boring work.
Yeah, this one resonated with me. He's basically debunking the myth of motivation, the idea that you have to wait for inspiration to strike before you can do your best work.
He argues that most people don't achieve mastery because they get bored with the repetitive nature of the work that's actually required.
It's the daily grind, the practice, the routines, the stuff that doesn't always feel exciting but is absolutely essential.
He uses Kobe Bryant as a prime example.
Mm.
His legendary work ethic, the countless hours he spent perfecting those fundamental basketball skills. It might have seemed boring to some, but it was the foundation of his greatness.
And that's the disconnect Adu highlights. People want the success, the achievements, but they're not always willing to put in the work, the often mundane work that's required to get there.
They want the results without the process.
Exactly. And that's where most people give up. They start with enthusiasm, but when the initial excitement fades and it becomes routine, they lose interest.
But the people who succeed, they're the ones who embrace that boredom, who find satisfaction in the consistency, in the repetition.
They understand that mastery is a long game. It's about showing up and doing the work day after day, even when it doesn't feel glamorous or exciting.
So the challenge for our listeners is to re-examine their relationship with the boring work in their own lives. What are those essential tasks that you might be resisting or rushing through? Could embracing those actually be the key to unlocking a whole new level of skill and achievement?
It's a powerful question to consider, because those small, consistent efforts, those seemingly insignificant repetitions, they build up over time. They become the foundation of true expertise.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Be So Good They Can't Ignore You, what's the overarching message we should all be taking away?
I think it comes down to this. Success isn't a gift, it's earned. It's about cultivating a level of skill and impact that makes you undeniable, that makes people sit up and take notice.
We have to stop waiting for recognition to be handed to us and start proving our worth every single day.
Like Adu says, the world doesn't owe us anything. We have to show it what we're capable of.
And he points to people like Oprah, Elon Musk, Serena Williams. They didn't wait for permission or luck. They put in the work, they honed their crafts, they made sure they couldn't be ignored.
They became so good at what they did that their results spoke for themselves.
So for you listening, the challenge is clear.
Yeah.
Be so good they can't ignore you. Work hard, learn constantly, persevere through challenges, make your own luck.
That's the path to true mastery, to achieving your full potential, to making a real impact in the world.
And on that note, I'll leave you with this final thought. What boring work in your own life could be the key to unlocking extraordinary results? What seemingly small effort could you embrace this week that might just make you unstoppable in your own unique way?
That's something to chew on, isn't it?
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.